Welcome back to Studio Chatter. We're talking with Morgan Foutz from the Operation Underground Railroad and what it does.
So my daughter a few weeks back kind of initiated some conversation about all this, and she was talking about Wayfair, and then it went into Pizzagate and some just continued, I felt like, down the rabbit hole. And at first me and my other daughter were like, no, that's, you kind of don't want to believe it, and it sounds so made up. And then as she started to give us more and more like things to look at, I'm like, okay, I do understand that it's a real thing. So we do need some education. We do need people out there helping us. So tell us a little bit about what you do and
the purpose
behind it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I am a community relations manager for Operation Underground Railroad. And so basically I help team leaders. So we branch out. We have groups of volunteers all over. And those volunteers are led by a team leader if there's enough people in that area. And then I help those team leaders to kind of do awareness events and fundraising and things just like that. And then OUR, they have three main E's, I guess, which is emancipate. So they rescue child victims, mostly focusing on childhood victims. But if they find someone there, of course, they'll rescue them. So emancipation, and then empowering the law enforcement. So Operation Underground Railroad won't work with any, independently without the permission of the law enforcement in that area.
Okay. And why is that?
They don't want to be vigilantes, they don't want to just go in, and that could really cause some serious problems with the governments and law enforcement, and we want to keep doing this. So we have to have everybody on board.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and so they empower them by helping them, training them. They really like to be invited. We don't really just go in and say, okay, we're going to take over this area.
Right.
So if areas of law enforcement want help, we're here for them.
To help educate them and train them on how to do it.
Okay. So, that brings to mind when I was traveling more frequently, you'd be in an airport and you'd see, maybe the sticker inside a bathroom, or maybe even in a business. That's not so frequent anymore, I guess, but maybe somebody who's trying to escape a bad situation, or maybe could reach out to someone, because that's maybe changed a little bit right now, and maybe someone is a victim. How can they reach out now?
That's a great question. So their 911 really can help you.
Okay.
There's also a human trafficking hotline, and I actually have that saved in my phone. So that's an easy thing that people can do if they want to start thinking about these types of things. And so a victim it's really hard for victims because they've been groomed that police are bad and everybody else is bad except for their pimps, and those people. So basically, and the children, if you're taken at 2 years old or you're groomed at 2 years old by your parents, you're not going to know by the time you're 8 that, that's just kind of life.
I know, it reminds me of when Elizabeth Smart was there, and then she had opportunities to maybe say something, but they had brainwashed her or scared her so much that she didn't dare. So what are some of the signs, or is there something that kind of sticks out that you could see that that's a victim and maybe needing help?
Yes, and I'm glad that you brought that up. So one thing that you can do to know all the signs, I just want to let you guys know, if you go to ourrescue.org, you can get trained. And there's a 45-minute training that you watch a 5-minute segment, and then you answer a couple questions, and you do that for about 45 minutes.
Okay.
And then some of the signs could be, sometimes they'll go into the doctor's, and the doctor will be like, so what's going on? And the man will answer, or whoever, there's women that go to, And so if they're kind of just downcast eyes and they can't speak for themselves, and you can just kind of tell. There's also signs of bruising and abuse, malnutrition. If you see a really well-dressed man or woman and they have a child that's kind of shabby and just doesn't look like they're part of the group, or they're kind of wondering what's going on. Why doesn't this kid have a bath, but this kid's wearing Versace, what's going on? Sometimes there's even branding. They will actually tattoo their victims and brand them and say, this is my property. You know, they might have like something on their neck or their hand.
So visible.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, a lot of that mental scarring does stay for years and years, though, because I did watch the Epstein story, and you see the victims so many years later talk about the abuse that occurred and went on, and even after the fact, you know, that stays with them and how it carries over, and even now with children or families of their own, how they're still overcoming, you know, the mental anguish. Are there any particular stories maybe that you'd like to share with us of victims who you've maybe rescued or been a part of saving?
Yeah, so there's so many. If you go to that same website, ourrescue.org, and look at their blog, they are constantly talking about it. So our latest one on that blog that I've seen, she was an 11-year-old girl, and she was our 4,000th rescue.
Wow.
And yeah, so she was rescued and she was sick. She had COVID. And so she was quarantined and not feeling very well. And she'd never been celebrated in her whole life. And so they saw that her birthday was coming up and they knew that she loved chocolate ice cream. So they got her chocolate ice cream and they bought her some things and like a manicure set and stuff and some clothes. And she literally didn't know what to do with those feelings. She said, I've never felt like I was celebrated before. And she's 11.
Wow.
And so,
do you know when she was abducted?
I
or
don't.
like it had been most of her life?
Yeah. And I mean, when we're talking about child trafficking, a lot of people I still can't wrap my head around it. We're talking about from the hospital to age 18.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's not just
No, it's
older
horrific.
children. This is like bad.
Infancy, yes.
Yeah.
So either sold at infancy or used by their parents
or
for other
family.
people.
Yeah. Exploitation, child pornography, things like that. Let's just film it. There was one lady that she did it to her 6-year-old daughter. She sold her 6-year-old daughter. And she said, well, I was able to get the money from the porn and from the exploiter. So somebody paid her to use their daughter and then she sold it. And so just stuff like that. It's just, I mean, it's dark. It's the darkest world to me. And that's why I'm here to fight this, because I don't think there's a greater cause on this earth.
So how did you get involved? Like, what was the driving purpose? I mean, it's amazing, and thank you.
Yeah. I learned about it in college, and then I worked a lot, and I was like, man, and it would always be on my mind, in the back of my mind. And then finally, I quit one of my jobs, and I was like, I'm just going to dive into it. And I even thought about actually starting my own aftercare, and I looked into it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't think I can do this, because I was just beginning my family and stuff. So I got online and I typed up, ending human trafficking stuff, and OUR popped up. And then I was like, I don't have to reinvent the wheel. Like, somebody's doing what I would love to help with. And so that night I just signed up to be a volunteer, and then I got really involved, became a team leader, and now I'm community relations manager. So
how long have you been doing this?
Just over a year.
Okay, so very
yeah.
new.
So I learned about it clear back in 2012, and I just thought about it and thought about it and thought about it, and then finally I just dove head first.
Yeah.
I was like, I quit my job and I just did as much as I could.
Wow.
So
Found your
Thank
passion
you.
in it.
I can't
Thank
wait
you for
to talk to
educating
you.
us. Thank you for being involved.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, this is just
And I'm
crazy.
excited in our next segment to know the things we can do to help.
Right.
I've seen a couple people I know on their Instagram page saying, I'm now a volunteer. And I'm like, oh, I'm so glad we have OUR coming so I can ask what that looks like, or money donations, or so many different things. So
Right.
there's more to come.
Yes, right. Coming up next, we'll finish our discussion about human trafficking and how we can help on Studio Chatter.